Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Really?
Yeah. Gotta
like
get that
it's a
audio
clap
video.
game.
Yeah, you gotta get audio video synced up.
That's just how we start, right?
It's
You
for
gotta-
Kiowa.
You have to get everything synced up, just like you've got to get everything synced up in your soils.
Oh, there you go.
Look at that. That was almost
Wow.
quasi.
It's almost like you know what you're talking
professional.
about, but
Like
you
I knew
don't.
what direction we were going, right? You got to sync it all up. It's a natural harmony, just like every time we clap to try and sync the video and the audio together. You know,
How do you clap soil?
it's probably a planting test. If you could clap the soil and it
There you
sticks together,
We got a guy that is actually going to be able to help us with that.
tell us about clapping soil.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think that's how that works.
Oh, okay.
But we are potentially going to learn about better ways to farm. This is a conversation that I think is going to be an interesting discovery on philosophy and what is going on out in the field. Welcome to the podcast, Rod.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, guys.
So let's first start off. Let's give your introduction, how you introduce yourself to people as they run into you for the first time.
Well, because of the Facebook following, they typically come up and say, you're the guy. And I just say yes. That's my typical introduction. So we have a good following on Facebook. And typically I just tell everyone I'm the founder of A Better Way to Farm. And we work with helping guys become more profitable, increasing yield, increasing profits every day. That's our goal.
Nice. So your background prior to starting that business, is it in agronomy? How'd you get to it?
It was a journey. It was kind of like circling Lincoln, Nebraska, like you did yesterday. Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm, and I thought I hated farming. I didn't hate farming. I just hated the way my dad did it, with all due respect.
Yep.
And I went to school and got a degree in business administration, economics. Bounced around in some different jobs, and I can remember driving home one night in October and realizing I wanted to be harvesting. I'd made a mistake, and agriculture was really my love. And so it took me about 5 years to kind of worm my way back into it, and I spent 10 years working in seed corn production, learned a bunch there on the production side. And then in 1992, we started A Better Way to Farm. And my beginning was not very notorious. It was like everyone else. Most of the industry, and still a lot of it today, I feel like it's based on, I'll buy you enough beer, you'll like me better than the other guy. We've all got the same stuff. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I never bought beer, but I tell everybody my stuff's good enough. I don't have to get you drunk to use it. But anyway, we fumbled around for about a year and a half trying to slug it out. And I had an epiphany one night coming home, and it was like, we're going to go to educational marketing. We're going to teach these guys how to do things better and why this is better. And that's the thing. If I can get every farmer in America to start asking why, then whether or not they purchase anything from us is not important, because it's what's going to make their farming operation more profitable.
1992. You're dreaming this up.
I'm old.
31 years ago. So
You're good at math.
What did farming look like at that time that made you go, there's a better way to do this?
Well, it wasn't so much what farming looked like, because we were working our way out of the 80s, but in a lot of rural areas it was still, there was some lingering, and what really just got my attention was everybody was just doing, like, I use this example. I love farmers, I really do, but they have a little bit of a weakness in that they'll tell their kid on the way to school, don't you dare be peer pressured into doing something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't want that 16-year-old. He's supposed to stand up and do it different.
Yeah.
But when it comes time to do what they're going to do on the farm, they're checking to see, is Joe running? Is Joe doing this spread? Is this it's pure peer pressure.
Yeah.
And the industry has thrived on that, and it's worked very well, and we just came in to be a disruptor and say, it's not what everybody else is doing, it's what do we do that works.
So, question for you. A better way to farm, I have better ways to do a lot of stuff, or I think I do. When you first started this, you had, all right, let's do it this way because I think my way's better. Has there ever been like a hiccup along the way? Well, maybe that wasn't better. I mean, have you ever proved yourself wrong that it wasn't?
No, I've been perfect my whole life.
There's the TikTok clip.
Right there. That's the intro
That's
to the
it.
podcast.
Yeah, there we go. I'd prefer you not edit that just like that. But anyway, yeah, no, honestly, we ran over 1,000 test plots. Okay. So I am relatively confident in the things to do. I have a very unique corn planter. It's got about 250,000 miles on it. We planted corn in Wheatland, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and south of San Antonio, Texas, and everywhere in between. And we ran over 1,000 plots. When you run 1,000 plots, you start to see some consistencies, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I tell everybody, though, here's the problem. If it works, I confirmed what I knew. If it fails, that's where I learn. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of failures along the way, okay? A lot of failures along the way that we've learned. My goal is to make those mistakes so that you guys farming don't.
Yeah. Well, me and Tanner just got the opportunity to interview from New Zealand, Sinjin, and on one of our previous podcasts. And one thing he said has stuck with me. I've been thinking about it for the last couple of weeks, Tanner, and that is competence equals confidence. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you have gained a whole heck of a lot of competence by trial and error and making it work. And now you can be extremely confident in the fact that you have a better way.
Correct. And, we don't know it all. We know. Here's what I believe about agriculture today. For everything we've learned in the last 50 years, and it's a lot, we're just on the beginning of a curve that's going to get really steep. We're going to learn so much in the next 15, 20 years. It's going to be completely wild, and it's going to upset the industry, I believe, in how we do things.
Yeah, the macroeconomics of that. Mm-hmm. I saw a tweet the other day of someone like, "Oh, it's Vance Grow. Like, when are the big companies going to change their narrative from we got to feed this growing population to the population's actually possibly trending down?" So when's that narrative going to come to fruition?
It's not.
More CRP acres.
Well, it doesn't make anybody money. It doesn't make anybody money.
That's right.
Yeah.
To grow less.
Correct. CRP acres don't make large ag retailers more money.
No, but what kind of government's way of controlling how many acres are coming to?
It's not just for conservation.
Yeah, you guys said that the other day. Okay. That's where I got it from.
Yes. But that's an interesting concept when you think about retailers and large ag companies wanting to sell more acres of their products. If we end up having less acres farmed because the demand isn't there, that's less sales. Got to boost margins.
We're off script, but you touched on a real number one. Karen, who's very much a part of this. I couldn't do this without my two youngest daughters. I got one that's working on a master's degree, and in college, Kayla, and then Karen, the one who had the health situations. She really is the brains behind this deal. And she forbids me from talking about politics, okay? So I can't, as much as I want to get into what you guys said there, I'd love to, but I can't. So, but what I believe is that to me, one of the scariest words in the industry is margin, because margin starts to drive every decision that the retailer makes. And we're really weird in that we will talk people out of using something. And as we see these acres possibly decrease, that's where we're seeing a lot of these products come into the marketplace that have no proof, no science. They have a great theory. And in my test plots, I had the opportunity to test hundreds of things. People would come to me, we want you to sell this, and here's the theory. And the theory sounded good, okay? But the reality was it didn't work. And so as I see the industry start to, and we're going to talk about micronutrients here in a little bit, I hope, and one of the things that I see is the industry wants to put everything in one jug. Mm-hmm. And they put everything in one jug. They don't have the science behind it. It'll work part of the time, because if you happen to land on a deficiency without the science behind it, but if you land on the deficiency, the product works there, but it doesn't work the next time, and we don't know why. But we're selling those kinds of add-ons because it's how we have a certain amount of revenue we want to bring in. So if our acres go down, then we got to sell more dollars per acre to get those revenue goals.
I know something that you need to add to your jug, Corey. You just need to add some reproductive Viagra or something like that. Then,
for corn?
Then you'll have population, all the population you need, and we don't want to have this.
His corn won't fall down. It'll stay standing.
It'll stay standing. But then our population grows. Hey, guess what? More demand, more money. We've solved the problem.
We just found a good name for a product there, corn Viagra. Heard of corn, the blue pill for corn.
I'm gonna let you take that and run with it. Okay.
You've seen the girth of those stocks.
This is not going where Rod wants this to go.
Well, that's what they always say in the side-by-side. Look at the girth of these. Look at the girth of these. Which one had the product?
Look at the size of the rib ball.
Yeah.
See, they've got balls.
We like to get off into the weeds.
We're there.
We're there.
All right, you talked about your 2 daughters. I know you got a son too, because I know your son,
Excellent.
right?
Yeah,
Kurt?
actually, I have 3 daughters.
3 daughters. Oh, that's what he said.
Kurt and Katie have limited involvement in what we do. Kurt's PhD and is super intelligent, and we get to work on some things together, and I really enjoy that time with him. Katie is a tremendously talented trainer, so I got really blessed. My wife says that God knew I didn't have the patience to have kids that weren't very smart, so they're all brighter than what I am.
Oh, yep.
That's good. That's good. I fear sometimes my daughters are getting to that point, and they're only 9 and 7. So
It'll get better, Dad. Just hang in there.
And is your wife involved?
Very involved. We've done this as a family. We've traveled together and done everything together. And yeah, she is very, very much involved each and every day as well, from support roles to calling people. Honestly, early on, she went to every training. Training's really important to us. And so she went to every training that I did. One of my pet peeves is I call somebody and the wife answers the phone and she does I'm very pretty, but I don't know anything.
Yeah.
That don't really fly with me. And so talking to Sheila or one of the girls is really no different talking to me. The knowledge base is pretty consistent.
Good.
and that's growing because we've got a lot of previous podcast guests that don't like it when they feel like they get treated differently from a salesperson because they make most of the decisions on the farm or is their farm. I know we've had several successful female farmers on the podcast that are more brains.
Let me share a quick story with you. I got some friends that live down straight south of here in Missouri, just across Missouri. And a few years ago, they won a contest in the yield contest, and the company that they planted the seed with, the wife and the oldest son was going to take the trip. And they said, well, you can't do that. If the farmer doesn't go, then we don't get to do that. And she said, I make all the decisions like this. I write all the checks, so we don't care. If you don't go, you're not going. And in case you're wondering, they had already sold their very last bag of seed to a very large operation.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So, today, this day and age, we never assume anything. I just always assume that it's a 50-50 deal because women are really getting involved in agriculture a lot more.
So let's go back for a second. I want to hear more of the story. And for our listeners, I don't know that we've actually expressed what is a better way to farm. Is it just educational? Is it a product? Is it lessons? Help me understand. You went to college, come back home, then you got this idea for a better way to farm. Where did it go from there? How did it blossom?
We have one company, basically, that is the provider of all of our products. And we're just a marketing arm for them, more or less. I'd like to tell you I'm a genius. Reality is I stumbled onto it by accident, and I ran across this company, and they just have an incredible line of incredibly high-quality products. And then they had other people that were out selling. But our deal for a better way to farm was we went after it. We're going to use these products, but we're going to educate as to why they work and how to best use them.
Gotcha.
And so it's all educational. A grower that starts with us starts out attending a 2-day fundamentals of agronomy course, plain and simple. I'm going to leave here and go to Bettendorf, and we're going to do one of those tomorrow, on Thursday and Friday. And so that really what we are is we're educators, and then we're advisors. I get guys and they call me up and they see us on social media, and they're like, well, I want you to review my soil test and write my recommendations. I'll pay you. And it's like, I won't do that because number one, I could do a whole session, and we just did one on soil testing, depending on your extraction methods, depending on the lab. If I take those numbers and I assume them to be exactly the same as what Midwest Labs does for us, I can really write you a train wreck. And so number two, I can write you great recommendations, but I don't know the quality of that product, and I don't know how it's going to react. And the variation in quality in things, especially in micronutrients, is astronomical. And so, it's educational, but our deal is if you buy our products, we help you for free. If you don't use our stuff, we're just out. God bless you and go in peace.
That makes sense.
So is there any other company that has product that comes with an advisor that gives classes?
Oh, I'm sure it's out there. There's a lot of those types of companies out there.
Okay.
And so they're all trying to educate at some level.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So you said you went to college for business.
Business administration, economics.
You grew up on a farm, didn't like the way your dad farmed. So you had to have a mentor or something in the agronomy side of things at some point. Like, who did you look up to, or where did you learn all this stuff?
I was really blessed. The guy that introduced me to this, stumbled onto it. I actually started work with this company at 2 o'clock in the morning on October the 7th of 1992.
Wow.
I didn't even really want to. I just wanted him to leave. So,
One of those situations, you bought it just so he'd leave?
to be honest, sometimes you guys will spend money just so they'll go away, right?
I've seen it in the seed industry.
Okay, yeah. Here,
The
I'll
guy
buy
that
10
keeps
bags.
10 bags. Come on, get out of here.
Yeah, it's worth 10 bags to make you leave. But anyway.
And then you return 8 of them.
Oh, I didn't get around to it. Yeah. No, this guy, he truly was, he was just incredibly intelligent. He got involved in a farm accident when he was a senior in high school, and that was what kept him from being an astronaut. I firmly believe this guy was just like crazy smart. And he was my first mentor and taught me so much about this. And he had done studying under Dr. Albrecht at Mizzou, and a lot of the guys who I really respect, Mulvaney, Illinois, some of these guys like that. And then I kind of replaced him with a gentleman named Denny, and Denny was my mentor for the next 25 years. And I believe him to be the least well-known, most profit-making advisor in the United States today.
Really? So he's kind of in the background, but he makes all the money.
He makes you all the money.
Okay.
That's the deal. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
That's good. Well, you told one short story about a producer that bought their last bag of seed due to a relationship, but you had asked if you could tell a story about Jim. Why don't you dive into that now and tell us Jim's story?
Well, I sent you guys, and I know we're not going to use it obviously on an audio podcast, I sent you 5 slides, and I think what really makes this work for us is just the passion that we have to make a difference. And Jim lives out in Nebraska and farms with his wife and his son-in-law. And we started with him. We met in like December of 19. So 21, harvest rolls around, and I get this text. And it's 3 field maps of the same field, right? And as you guys look at those, the first one had a lot of red and yellow on it. Second one was almost all real pale green. Third one's getting more dark green. So I called Jim. I said, what's this? He goes, that's the yield map from 19, the year before we met you. Then that's 20, first year we used your system. Mm-hmm. Then 21. Well, since then, he's sent in 22 and 23. And if you guys are looking at those, you can see the uniformity that comes. And in 23, the field's just dark green. Their farm average was like 100 bushel higher in about 4 years.
Wow.
Real money there.
Well, and and the bottom line is that's if you can do that, everything else will take care of itself. And that's what we want to do. It's why we get up in the morning and
Right.
go do the trainings and work with people.
Right. That's very interesting. I mean, to be able to separate that, I mean, sometimes years are different, right?
Yep.
But if you can consistently see it year in, year out, that's a big deal.
Well, and when you get a trend line that just continues, as a matter of fact, this year, I'm not your tech guy. We talked earlier, the girls don't let me touch a computer. They'd prefer I just had a flip phone, to be quite honest with you. But I look at this deal, and I know that they can change the guides or charts or margins, whatever you want to call them. They're going to leave them the same every year so they can see the consistency in the trend line. But they went in this year and they recalced them. They had bunches of acres in that field going over 300. They had them set so that anything over 285 was the same color no matter what it was.
Yeah.
And then they went in, they rechecked it, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, we've got so much of this going over 300.
Right.
And so they're going to run it both ways going forward.
Tanner, this makes me think, one of the first podcasts we ever did, and we did it in my basement, we talked about trust. We talk about trusted advisor. We've said it a million times on the podcast, trusted advisor. Now, Rod, I'm thinking of your story here, and I'm thinking it took 4 or 5 years. So this isn't something that somebody just bought into and said, we'll try it. It didn't work. Screw this. It's a longevity. It took trust to trust that process for 5 years or so to say, now look, hey, the map did change, and here it's still consistently the same and still consistently the same. You worked on making a better way to farm. How much of that, when you talk with people now, is trust? Like that you're the guy, you're the advisor, and that what you're doing is a better way to farm?
Well, a lot of it. I mean, honestly, I hope that people don't work with people that they don't trust.
Yeah.
And for us, we're really blessed. We have a great team of people. And if you happen to join our team with the intent to market, my expectations are really high. Okay. I don't want anybody out just peddling. Our guys have to have went through multiple classes. They're going to work hard. We're doing a deal right now called the 12 Days of Nutrients on Facebook. It's alive. We'll do 12 of them here through the month of December. But we're trying to internalize these things that we learn and we study every year to learn more and more things. And so I think the social media has really helped us because our people come into the training. There's people that come into that training that know nothing. And then there's people that's working with us that have watched us on social media for 3 or 4 years. They already have a tremendous knowledge base. Okay, and that's what's really helped us get this deal rolling fast.
So your social media is an interesting topic because sometimes it comes off very direct. And sometimes it comes off very direct in the fashion of people aren't doing it right.
Yep.
What's the background behind that strategy?
Well, disruptor. Quite honestly, it's twofold. One is to be a disruptor, and being a disruptor. What a disruptor really does is makes you think. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I just want you to think. Mm-hmm. Okay, and to quote Truett Cathy, thinking is hard work. That's why most of America won't do it. And so our goal is to make you think. And then the second thing is we are attempting, Tanner, to draw things out there are so many things that become accepted that aren't necessarily true. In 1491, everyone knew the world was flat. And I hear people say, everyone knows. And man, right, that's a giant red flag.
I don't know. There's a lot of flat earthers still.
I was just going to say, have you not gotten in that wormhole on TikTok?
I stay out of those things, okay? But you know what I'm saying. It's just that everyone knows. And so we will go after it pretty hard sometimes if there's something that we feel really needs to be done, you know. And Tanner, we know we're not for everybody, and that's okay. I truly can be friends. We don't have to. One thing we've lost in America is that we should be able to disagree and still go eat dinner together.
Yeah, correct.
But right now, it's if Tanner and I don't agree, we got to scream at each other and hate one another, and that's sad. Yeah. Being civil is lost. And so we're going to be who we are, and we know part of the people are going to follow us, and we know that part of the people are probably going to hate. And that's okay. We can still be friends.
And you're not the only one. I mean, I know influencers on TikTok that say tile is horrible and no-till is horrible. And there's different strokes for different parts of the country. We just talked about the fact that Mike Burkhart's area, we couldn't, can't use anhydrous. So there's different programs. You talked about it that, hey, you can't just send me your soils and I'll say, hey, here's a script for you. It doesn't happen that way. So it's definitely looking deeper and thinking.
Yeah, I think it's a great strategy. You pull on a lot of heartstrings. I mean, farming, you just said it is a lot of emotion, right? Grandpa did it this way, and then they're going to argue with it. But we all know from social media that, honestly, sometimes you got to have the hate if you want the views, because that 1 or 2% of hate is the loudest, and then they drive your algorithm.
Oh, they
right?
do.
You know, so like, I'm going to just say right now, you're probably the most controversial person or account in agronomy because of just being direct.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing. I think it's a great strategy.
There are a lot that are trying to build followings that are playing nice.
Yep.
And it's but this is the research that we have. You know, it's not in your face. It's not challenging the status quo as direct.
But I like how you're educating them prior. Then they already know about your system, your product before they even get there. You have predetermined that they are qualified before they even got to the.
That's our goal, because it's not fair to them to not. And you know, Tanner, to what you said, I'm not trying to be mean or hateful. I'm just trying to make people think. One of the things that the people who market with us that they like is we spend an awful lot of time on personal development, becoming better people, if you will. And one of the coaches that Karen Kayla and I have, he says it in regards to social media that your haters are actually uninformed fans.
Ah.
And you are absolutely correct. They do good things. And again, it'd be a boring world if we all wore a black T-shirt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great strategy.
Well, we know that on some of our stuff. We had the poor one-legged mama.
Yeah. Oh God, she had so much hate.
She had her son got to 9 years old, got to Farmer's First, 10 acres, 15 acres,
Yeah.
5 acres, whatever,
Yeah.
small. And she said that he was farming. He made the choices. He funded it. And there were so many people out there calling that BS. Who cares?
We've never had to shut comments off. We had to. That thing was going for 1 million on Facebook.
Really?
and
But
we
talk
had to
about
shut it down.
uninformed fans.
yeah,
Prop this kid up. He's the future of agriculture. Whether Dad lent him the money or wrote the check, does that freaking matter?
Yeah, he's
not at
learning.
all. And for me, my wife, super sharp, and she has this theory of life, and it's all about pie. And she says there's a group of people that
I already
believe
like her.
there's this group of people
banana
that believe
cream?
there is. It doesn't matter. Hopefully peach if I'm
okay.
involved. But there's this pie, and some people believe there's just one. And if you guys all get 2 pieces and I don't get any, our view is that yes, there's one pie, but we have the ability to make a whole lot more pies. So you guys can have all that you want. And then we'll just make another one. And there'll be stuff for everybody else. And in agriculture, sometimes there are people who believe it's a win-lose situation. I think it's a zero-sum game. And our goal is, I want to see everybody do. I hope you guys here become hugely successful.
Now, wait a minute. There is a win-lose situation. Because if we all start making 450 bushel acre corn, somebody loses.
True.
Somebody. It might not be us. It might not be someone else who's doing 450 bushel corn. But in our world right now, we can't support that.
No.
We barely have enough demand for the carryout we've got today.
No, but think of the land prices if we had
Damn it, Dave.
450.
There we go.
Oh, man. I tell you, I'd be the winning
You
side
said
of that.
you're looking for someone else to go into your real estate deal. I think I'm here.
I think we found the guy.
got it. We
Like,
got
this
it,
is- This is
Think of what the rent would be.
business background. This is perfect. Yeah.
But the bottom line is, Tanner,
But 450 bushel acre corn is going to be sold at 99 cents. Because the price is going to even out.
Yeah. Unless we make more people.
that just keeps coming back, doesn't it? Here's the deal, though, Tanner. I probably got what you consider some bad news. You probably are aware of this, but our trendline yields are going up.
Yeah.
And I think there's a day coming in your lifetime where 400 will be the norm.
Really?
Okay. And I think that to some degree we can be okay with that. There are other things that we could do. The alfalfa market is really strong. I don't want to do it, but there's a lot of farms. I live in southern Iowa. We got a lot of hills down there that should be growing alfalfa, not corn.
Yeah.
Cut down on the ditches. There are some things here that might work itself out. The economy always forces us to go do the right thing eventually.
Okay, so we've talked here nearly 25 minutes, and we've got a lot of your background.
Okay?
But we really haven't implemented anything that could be a better way for our listeners to farm.
All right?
Let's talk some of those microbes that you teased in our introduction.
Well, let's just go back, and I feel like there are 2 secrets here going forward. And I had a really good friend, Francis Charles. I love Francis. He taught me so much, and he was controversial too, and that was fine. But I loved him, and he a lot of times when he spoke would say, "Don't be a moron," because most people want to think that the secret to better yield is just more N, more P, more K. And if that worked, we'd already be growing 400 bushel corn. Okay? Right? The secret, as from where we stand, is in the micronutrients, and then the next frontier is going to be in proper foliar feeding. All right, Tanner? Now, the background is to the micronutrients is you have to do the soil test. And when you're foliar feeding, you have to do the tissue test. And when we – go ahead.
You said full air feeding?
Foliar.
Foliar, Foliar.
So I don't know what that is. Can we?
You don't know what that is?
I don't know what that is. What's that?
Okay.
If I can diverge for just a second.
Sure. It's your podcast.
In
You do
case
anything you
somebody
want.
else who doesn't know on the podcast is like, what the heck did he just say?
Foliar.
He's not full of air. No.
No. So foliar feeding is the idea of putting nutrients on with a sprayer.
Okay.
Taking them in through the leaf instead of in through the soil.
I get it now. You're okay.
Foliage.
When you're
Foliage.
at, yep.
Yeah. But we're going to go out of order, but you started this, so I'm going to finish it, okay? In regards to foliar feeding, it's not It's not difficult, but the problem in ag is sometimes we want to think that the laws of nature are like suggestions. And I give this example. If we climb up on your building and we can say, I don't believe in gravity, and I can jump, and I'll probably say it twice before I hit the ground, but I'm going to hit the ground.
Yeah.
In foliar feeding, people want to just say, well, let's just go spray. It's not that easy. You have to have a proper temperature, you have to have a proper pressure, and you have to have a proper gallonage in order to be successful. We have a book at home. It's called List of People Who Failed at Foliar Feeding. Okay, it's a lengthy list. And because they tried to violate the laws of nature, okay, they did it wrong and it didn't work. And if you do it wrong, it will not work. Okay, I guarantee you it will not. As a matter of fact, you may cut yield. Okay.
Well, how big of a window do we have to do it right?
Well, there's windows. It's V3 to V5 typically, V5 to V8. Or excuse me, V3 to V5, you can edit that out, V3 to V5, and then V8 to V12, and then again around R2, R3, and that's both corn and beans.
Those are stages of corn, Dave.
I
For
gather
your
that.
Foliar question.
He has an Iowa State shirt. I think he knows that.
Yeah, I got that part.
I don't know. I don't know. But I'm agreeing with you in us as farmers want to just throw this magic product in with our post application and just spray it when it's the best time to spray weeds, right? Because it's saving a trip.
Dude, I want to invent that product. If I do, you guys will never see me again.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm gonna be really rich on a beach somewhere. It's not. There's no silver bullet. That's the bottom line. And as a matter of fact, I get people who try to mix. They do a weed and feed, and I need you to decide: are you trying to make something grow, or are you trying to kill it? Pick one.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
it.
So I shouldn't use that for my lawn? Because I buy weed and feeds all the time for my yard.
Trying
But
to
are you
save
really?
that pass?
Are you?
You don't want to walk over it again?
That's right.
You probably have a pull type for your big lawn.
For my big lawn.
So
Anyway,
yeah,
you could skip that question.
I realize that you're doing that, but I'm just really anti on that because everything about foliar feeding is the antithesis of what you want. For instance, if you're out spraying dicamba, any chemical for that matter, you want low pressure, you want big droplets, you want them to fall straight down,
Yeah.
right? And you're probably going to use a higher volume because you want to get good coverage.
Yep.
Okay, foliar feeding, high pressure, really low volume, and when you turn at the end of the field, it should look like a mist. If you blow, it should float like 50 feet.
Yeah.
That's not how you want to spray your dicamba, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, there's a lot
Okay.
of people that aren't planting dicamba beans anymore just for that.
Exactly.
thing.
You know, and so that's the key. Is it is another trip, but it's a top end management tool. We don't start there. I don't want anybody to start with that. I want to go back, talk about the soil test, doing the micronutrients, and guys, in the world of micronutrients. Well, let me back up. I have a really good friend that manufactures fertilizers. His name is Jonathan, and Jonathan talks about, he helps me with the training sometimes, and I think you guys are probably aware of this, but when I sell you NPK, what are the labeling requirements? Well, they are that I promise you a certain percentage of NPK. Mm-hmm. That's it. I can have cadmium, fluorine, arsenic, any kind of poison can be in there. I'm under zero obligation to tell you that.
For a carrier.
Yeah,
Yep.
or filler, or just
Yeah,
whatever.
Yep.
In micronutrients, I can sell you something that says chelated on it, and then it might only be 5% chelated. Well, manganese is relatively cheap. Chelating agent is very expensive. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of products in the marketplace that will be 5% chelated. The other 95% of the metal in there is just junk. You don't get it.
Ask it, Dave.
What?
You don't know what chelation is. What is it?
I don't.
Yeah.
Why does he always make you do it?
Corey likes to make me feel dumb. So.
It might
If
pick
you
up.
asked what foliar feeding is, you need to ask what chelation is.
I thought he was saying full air. I was like, I've never heard of that. I can tell you that.
No, that's what
So,
you are, Dave. Full
Yep,
air.
I gather that. I gather that. All right, chelation.
Chelate is a Greek word that means claw. All it means is we take a zinc ion or manganese ion, whatever it is, and we put this EDTA around it, and it just circles that ion and encapsulates it. The problem with zinc and manganese and all those things are the minute they hit the dirt, they tie up with something else. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to get them into the plant, you got to keep them in their form. Most obvious, the first thing they tie up with is phosphorus. Well, then the phosphorus and the manganese are laying in the soil, unavailably picked up by the root.
Yep.
Yes.
Hold on a second, though.
It's biology.
If I'm a salesman and I'm trying to sell you biologicals, and I have a way to make it less or more chelated, is what I'm hearing, by adding some filler.
Micronutrient.
Okay, so we're gonna put micronutrients on, but I'm gonna put more filler. Why in the world would I, other than cost, why in the world would I ever do that? I want your product to be successful. If I know this as a salesman and a company, why would I put fluff in there if it's not going to make, because they're not going to buy it again. If it doesn't work, they're not going to buy it again.
Did you ever? That's not necessarily true, Chief.
Yeah.
Okay.
Corey's been planting Hogemeyer seed.
Oh, come on. I was thinking of a different company.
You guys
Shots
are brutal.
fired.
Yeah.
I mean, if I do a bad product, like I always ask myself, hey, should I spend this extra money in advertising? Always. I always spend the extra money. The reason is if I do a bad job, it just will not get me any more business. But always, if I go above and beyond and spend the extra money, it tends to always get me more. Maybe that's a different philosophy than every other person. Maybe that's why I don't make money. But I don't know.
Margin. We talked earlier about margin. We are working on a very, very low margin.
Okay.
And most people can't function. Our business model is different in that there's no brick and mortar. It's all factory direct. Everything that when you purchase product from me, it shows up on a semi or a UPS truck, typically a semi, and it's going to be dropped off at your house. And so we take out a whole lot of the equation that requires margin. We don't have employees. We don't have company trucks getting wrecked by employees who drink too much. We don't have a lot of these things that go into that. And so rather than, you look at the cost of a raw material in blue jeans or tractors or whatever, it's a very low percentage. Our cost of raw materials that go into our product is about 5 times what the national average is.
Wow.
Gotcha. So back to what you were saying. Sorry to take you off course
that's
there.
okay.
But you were basically saying that this other metals, chemicals do not work well with soils.
Correct. And but here's the bottom line. If you have enough of a deficiency, the worst product in the world will get you some response. Okay? That's the bottom line. No matter how bad it is, there are situations where you're going to get a positive economic response. The question is, but for us, you guys are talking about the silver bullet.
Yeah.
Okay. The silver bullet is you got to do everything right. These guys are not stumbling into 300 bushel farm averages. Okay. They've got to be doing everything correctly.
Right. To get 300 bushel average, you have to have a lot of 350s and 400s.
And not very many 250s.
That's what I was going to say. And what you really got to avoid is those low twos. I had a good friend down in Texas, and matter of fact, I just talked to his seed dealer yesterday, and I went down there one time to work with my friend, and the seed dealer said, he really likes you. I said, yeah. I said, you know why? I said, well, because I'm really charming. He said, that's not it. So, but he said that you haven't improved his top that much, but you've tightened his yield curve way up.
Uh-huh.
I can get you closer to 300 if I can just take all of those 150s and 160s and move them up to 280.
Keep going.
No, that's just it. It's all about taking the limiting factors out and bringing it up.
Yeah.
Do you remember the very first Farm for Profit conference, the Ames Ag Summit? Mm-hmm. We had a presentation.
We did.
I do remember this.
That his
just talked about getting rid of all the bad acres.
Yeah, he talked about even skipping planting spots.
Just don't even plant them. You're not making money on those 10 acres. Just skip it.
We're talking 8 years ago. That's what his company was. Then he sold his company. It became, it kind of disappeared.
Sure.
But he gave a presentation that was about if you had a hole that drowned it out 7 out of 10 years.
Don't plant
his
it. Don't spray
suggestion
it.
was
Into CRP.
pull up to it and drive over it and plant. And if it was bad enough, put it in CRP to get rid of the low numbers.
That's exactly. Yep.
Stop throwing things in there. He was doing the physical get rid of low numbers.
Yep.
You're taking a look at the microbes, the soil makeup.
Everything, yeah. The soil health from the micro products and then the micronutrients that it takes to do it. I can't fix a wet spot. Okay, you got a low spot and he's probably right. Nobody should argue with that.
You could sell some tile.
Well, yes, this is true. But my deal is that what we're going to do is just take, because a lot of times every field's got some marginal spots in it. What we figured out is if you give every plant equal opportunity nutrition. That's how I sent you guys those pictures, that 5th-year field map. It's because we've given every plant equal opportunity nutrition, and we figured out we figured out for those guys in particular, they had a real problem. They had too much potassium and not enough magnesium, even though their magnesium was completely off the charts. But the potassium overwhelmed the mag, and the mag wouldn't go into the plant. So they're never going to fix that. They're going to farm around it. And that's really what we're going to teach you guys how to do, is how to farm around the problems that you have that you're never going to get rid of. So
And that's the problem with the more is more.
Right.
Right? All these guys, we'll just put more nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium on, and that throws your micros out of whack because you got Mulder's globe, right? That's nutrients affecting different nutrients and tying up and helping and all that. So
I think this with old people all the time. Look at geriatric population. And
wait a minute.
I don't know if you fall into this yet, but just stay with me here. My dad has a pill thing that has 42 pills a day, and every time I guarantee you that one pill that's lowering your blood pressure is probably screwing over your water pill over here that's supposed to do this. And I never thought of farming like pills, but it's just like a pharmacist. They say that one's going to interact with that one negatively, and that one's not going to make that one do the right thing. So my dad's supposed to go to the pharmacist and make sure nothing interacts with each other. You're like the pharmacist for soil.
I want to be. And in regards to that, we see, I'll just say this. I do take a particular medicine, and the medicine that I take created a lung problem.
Yeah.
So they wanted to give me a medicine for the lung problem, and when I was reading on it, that's going to instantaneously, if I go on that, then I have to go on 2 other medicines, which those 2 increase, then I have to get on a 3rd one.
Yeah.
Okay? If you listen to Donald Schriefert, he says that N, P, and K, especially N and K, are the drug of American farmers. Mm-hmm. The more you take, the more you need. And it was Jim that had this deal with the mag and the potassium. In fact, the more potassium they put on, the worse it made it, because it overwhelmed their magnesium, and they were just piling it on and piling it on. So they needed to back off on what they were doing there on the K. They had 400 parts per million. That's pretty sufficient. Yeah. And come in there and put on some magnesium. And when they did that, it changed everything. But you're absolutely right. It's no different than the drugs. And oftentimes, every time you overuse something, you pay a price for it.
Yeah.
See, we need to create the Ozempic for soil.
That's the weight loss.
It's where it fixes a problem, but then you get the cost cutting factor, or whatever it is, to where everybody's taking Ozempic to lose weight.
You just need to take your soil to the gym.
What are we talking? Eat more beef. So, is there like side effects in medicine? What do we call it in farming?
Well, Corey discovered a side effect. What was it, a year or 2 ago, to where you spread lime in the fall at the same time that. I can't remember what else you were spreading.
I didn't discover it. It was told on the podcast with a past partner. But lime and I think phosphorus at the same time created something in the soil that...
we need to do a side effects episode.
Let's let the pharmacist say what that was. Maybe he knows.
Well, you run the risk of things really tying up there, and that's what happens. You got to be very careful that you put 2 things on together, and if they have a propensity to be attracted, then they actually get tied up and they won't go anywhere.
Because lime's a lot of calcium.
High pH, and some of your phosphorus is acidic, and so they.
Yep. So, what? 19? You said 92?
Yeah.
Okay, so 30 years ago, or whatever your math was, 31 years ago. How much smarter are we in farming today than we were 31 years ago?
In some ways a lot, and in some ways not. The thing that aggravates me is the fact that there is this knowledge base out there. Okay, quite honestly, I'd love to tell you I'm on the cutting edge and I'm a genius. The reality is, what I've done is I've went back and looked at people like Dr. Albrecht from Mizzou. This stuff was known in the 50s.
Really?
Okay. But I'll just give you a quick story. I was with Dr. Mulvaney on the 1st of November. And he did this study on nitrogen. And he had a grad student at that time who helped him. And they were getting ready to release this study. She's a PhD now up in the Dakotas teaching. But she got a call the morning they were going to release it from someone. I'm not going to name any names in this, but someone in the industry. And they said, you guys need to stop talking about this. This doesn't serve the industry. And that, to me, I don't think we're very smart when we know something, but we withhold it. Okay? And so there are a lot of things that we know, and there are people out here trying to tell the truth, and you get blowback. That's where the things come from, Tanner. That we get people, because they will die on that hill of believing what they've been told over and over.
I mean, it is interesting in agriculture And when we started the podcast, we've started focusing, from the beginning on profitability and running your farm more like a business.
Yep.
Not like Grandpa did it, unless Grandpa ran a great business.
Right.
And a lot of that is taking acres and trying new things.
Yep.
Taking and getting your own trial results to compare to the trial results that are provided to you, because the only unbiased information that you can provide is your own. And even then, sometimes it's biased.
If you can set your trials up. I mean,
Yeah.
we found that, my dad loves trials, but man, he had so many trials going on, different diagonals going through the field and crossways with the rows, different plants, different planting populations. Like the data was trash.
Yeah, if you have to study them one at a time. If I make 2 changes, which one do I give the credit to?
So, and then you got, what's the average farmer? They have 28 seasons of their life.
Oh.
28 planting seasons. So you only have 28 times to try variation, 30 times, whatever. Let's say 30 times if you're 30 and whatever. If you got 60 years of farming or 30 years of farming, whatever the number is, you only have a certain set time to change that. And if it takes another year before you can try it again, or another year to try it again, or change this, or if you can only do 1 or 2 changes at a time, this could be a whole lifespan of trying to make this work before you figure it out.
And that's where our 2-day fundamentals of agronomy come. I just tell guys when I talk to them, you want to take 15 years off your learning curve? Because we've done the data, we've done the research. And when you come into the 2-day, it's not a sales on just our products. It's 2 days. I mean, it gets CEUs for guys if they're a CCA, all right? And it's just fundamental knowledge, plain and simple. And so you can go out and you can experiment and you can spend the next 20 years figuring out, and all you're going to do is get to a point where you can start. Why not start here and then spend your next 30 years still studying, still trying to get better? But there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If it's already been proven, let's go with it.
So one other thing that that you got me wondering. So better way with Rod is what my title is here on my page, right? We've got the opportunity to educate ourselves with every way possibly we know to be more profitable at farming, because we're Farm for Profit podcast. And it's been collection of pollen, faster planters, better equipment, quicker harvest, et cetera, new tools, everything down to micronutrients. Why you've had to look at all the things, and everybody claims that they have a better way to farm, if you will, whether it's this manufacturer, that seed company, this whatever. You specifically went a certain direction. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, because I feel like my grandmother was a huge influence on me. And she said, do not be a master of all trades, because you are jack of all trades. You'll be a master of nothing. And I don't do equipment and I don't do chemicals. If I get some kind of a horrible, you come to me and say, man, this was a train wreck, I'm going to share it with our people, because I don't want them to have the train wreck, right? But overall, we've just focused on the agronomy side of it. And because we know that we can change that, you need to find a trusted advisor in seed. You need to find a trusted advisor in equipment. You got to do the best that you can in all those fronts, but I don't think it's one guy.
So we've talked foliar early.
Yep.
And we've talked that the data is key. You want to make sure that the soil sampling is being done, tissue sampling is being done, to make sure that we have accurate data to make decisions upon.
Yep.
We haven't gotten into products or micros that you think should be involved in an operation. Can we do that?
Yeah, sure. We believe first and foremost that if you're going to put on phosphorus, it needs to be an orthophosphate ion, because it's the only form that goes into the plant. You can apply a polyphosphate, and they will tell you that it's a slow-release phosphate, which is kind of a joke. And it does become available as the temperature warms up. For those that don't know, a polyphosphate is like a log chain. It's hooked, every link's together. An orthophosphate is an individual link. Corn plant will only take in the individual link. Now, if your soil temperature gets to 125 degrees, all the polyphosphate breaks down. I'm going to suggest if you get to that, you've got way bigger concerns than your phosphate. Okay?
Right.
And
Holy
so
smokes, that's hot.
It's bare black soil with no ground cover. It's shading it, probably.
Maybe the Sahara Desert. But anyway, and so polyphosphate's number one. We believe that potassium hydroxide or potassium sulfate is a huge improvement over potassium chloride. here's the deal. You guys talking some of the things you've talked about with margins and different products. I tell everybody that good and easy are not brothers. They're not even cousins. And good and cheap are never, ever cousins or brothers, okay? So pick one. You want good, you want cheap.
There's like a triangle, right? That you can't get fast, good,
and cheap. You can pick two.
Unless it's Butcher Box, because Butcher Box is breaking the time. See, that's a podcast commercial that works really well.
No,
Cheap's not cool and cool's not cheap.
Oh.
There you go. So anyhow, so that's the P and the K. We believe in stabilizing nitrogen. We have a stabilizer that works very, very, very well. I think you guys probably know I'm not a huge anhydrous fan. I look at that deal that happened down in Teotopolis, Illinois, where 5 people got killed. I'm not really sure you can save enough money to justify that. We work with people that use it.
I'm gonna cut into
No, that's
this
right.
just as our challenging method goes. So you're more of a product safety reason for not using anhydrous than it is the effectiveness of the product?
No, the product will work. It's effective. It's just hard on soil health. And my challenge to you is, if you're an anhydrous user, take half of 180, and for 5 years use 32 or whatever you want, ammonium sulfate, whatever you want to use, and half of the field, and just see what happens over a 5-year period.
Do you like AMS as a nitrogen and sulfur source?
If I have high pH, I love it. If my pH is above 7, I think it's a great choice. And even if it's below, it's a good choice to use. You just got to be cognizant of where your pH is.
And you're talking, I just want to talk on products on the P and K side. Like, so most people would use a MAP or a DAP for a dry, and what are those?
Well, they're not anything that we market. I'm not a big fan of a dry broadcast, and let me say this, oftentimes we get that right. Even though it's a minimal effect, I live in southern Iowa. Our pHs are terrible. Okay, we have to lime all the time. And so 1152O has a very low pH, and so that would exacerbate any problem that I have. 18460 has a pH of about 8 typically. I'm looking for 18460. So even if it's not a product that I'm selling, I probably would like to push you towards doing some things, just because I'm not making money. I don't care if you use DAP or MAP, but one of them is going to be better for you.
Right.
That's the better way to farm.
The
What's right for
anhydrous
you?
will also lower your pH.
Correct.
Too, right? So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that process of it converting over really takes pretty good dose of calcium every year.
Yep.
So you ask about products, and then once we move on beyond the P and the K, then we go into the micronutrients. And the biggest mistake, Tanner, that we see there is trying to do everything in one jug. Okay? Because here's what I know. What you need at your farm is not what Greg needs in St. Joe, Illinois. It's not what Tim needs in Texas. It's not what Jim needs. And quite honestly, I looked at a bunch of soil tests last night for a friend of ours out in South Dakota, and he's got farms, and you would swear to goodness these things were on different planets. This farm has a pH of 8.4, and the manganese levels are non-existent. And then he went over here and he had a pH of 6.0 and had all the manganese that he needed. Well, you can't treat that all. We want to do easy. We're back to that easy button. We want to do it all the same. Just go.
Yep.
But the reality is we got to treat that stuff differently if we're going to take those low-yielding spots and bring them up.
And that's probably the biggest problem with, as farms get bigger, they're not really getting smaller. The scale, they have employees, less skilled, labor possibly. That's just, they want to be able to send the ripper out or the anhydrous bar out and just hit every acre with the same.
I know.
Yeah, and so that's probably what you have to battle quite a bit.
Well, some, and again, we're not for everybody, but the bottom line is this. Sometimes maybe we farm 10% less and make 30% more per acre.
Yep.
We have to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? What? If I want to be the biggest farmer, so I can go to the coffee shop and be the biggest farmer, then that's good. That's you. Do you? But if I'm in business because I want to pass this on to the next generation, I want to be really profitable, then I probably have to look at it differently in how I'm going to do it.
Yep. Yeah, my dad and I've had that conversation before. Even before I came back to the farm, was we're not. It's hard for us to pick up ground if we wanted to, just with our area. We can only move one direction because we have a growing population to the south of us. And, man, what can you do with 10% more on all your acres? Your margins go up quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Sometimes we got to decide, do we want to farm another 10% of acres, or do we just want to make another 20% in our margins?
Yeah.
You look at a guy who can. We just did a Zoom meeting last night. It was a private Zoom meeting. But one of the guys was talking about what his cost of production was. Well, if you can move, there's people today right now producing corn. It's costing them $4.60 a bushel. I hope they didn't grow very much.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but we got guys producing it in the low threes. Some of them just in the upper twos.
Wow.
That's where, you know, if you can grow 280 bushel corn at $2.95 a bushel, that's your expansion.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And so you expand by concentrating labor or effort or focus into getting more out of the acre rather than getting more acres.
So you're not just focusing on just growing, more bushels with less. You're actually you're trying to take that ROI
Yep.
and drive that down.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that's the only number that I love guys. Well, this is cheaper per gallon or this is cheaper per acre. Well, if you sell your corn, which I got friends in Kentucky, they sell their corn by the gallon. But for the rest of us, it's by the bushel. And so everything it drives is what does it cost to grow that bushel of corn. That's the only number that's relevant today.
We just had a Snapchat group chat about.
Old Mark Thomas.
We were talking about Iowa corn being better than Nebraska corn, and he jumps in and says, "No, you don't realize that Kentucky corn's better than all of it because it leaves in the form of bourbon."
And I said, Mark, you have the best product for corn. You don't have the best corn.
They can make 100 bushel corn work like a charm down there.
Yeah. It is interesting how, different regions, where you go, where 100 bushels that's great,
Yeah.
or 150 or whatever. And guess what? They're only paying $50-$60 an acre in rent. And you could probably improve that acre, just as easy.
Early in my career, we were in 10 years, and I had a real epiphany. I was working with a guy in McLean County, Illinois, and it was the first time I'd ever worked with a guy. He rented a section and paid $304 an acre cash rent. Mm-hmm. And my brother picked up a new client in western Kansas. He just bought a dryland farm, bought a section, paid $300 an acre. They had pretty different expectations.
Yeah.
And we were able to help both of them be more profitable because it's about taking the hand that you got dealt and playing it.
Where are your clients? Are you spread out?
All over the United States.
And is it mainly corn and soybeans, or is it all types of crops?
It's all types of crops. My fastball, corn, wheat, beans, alfalfa. We've got some other people that are doing some other things. You get up north, they start growing all kinds of things that I think are weird, but they're super successful at it. Canola and barley and all kinds of stuff. So sugar beets.
I'm surprised you haven't got up into Canada. There's a lot of ag up there.
There's some labeling issues. Canada has some interesting laws on what gets to come into the nation, and it's kind of spendy, and so our company has not made the decision yet to do that. So we have a tremendous following in Canada, and they're trying to take what we teach and implement it. But as far as moving products up there, I can't do that right now.
Yeah, you got to talk politics to get into that.
Karen
We're
forbid
not
me.
allowed to talk politics.
Exactly. Thank you, Tanner.
So
Say it again.
Before we wrap up, what's one last thing that you want to leave our listeners with before we try to summarize what we talked about today?
Do something different. Just when Francis Child would speak, we were on the road speaking together, and he'd stand in front of 500 people, and we'd get done. He goes, the saddest thing is 500 people just clapped and paid attention here, and 2% of them will go home and do something different. Do something different. Okay, I don't care what it is. Do something different just to see what happens. I hope they call us. I hope they follow us. I do want to mention Karen has huge faith in you guys and loves what you're doing. If the people would want to reach out to us and go to betterwaytofarm.com/profit, they can get a free gift and get an interview, to talk to one of the team. And so I would like to leave with that. And then whenever we get clear done, I have a story I want to close with.
Yeah, and I'm just on the website right now. It's a pretty nice website, and you have a farm profit score calculator. Mm-hmm. I see that. I kind of went into that a little bit, so you can do that. And it also looks like you're possibly an author.
We sort of. I talk.
Yeah.
I don't get to do anything else. Okay.
Sometimes books on tape.
Yeah. I'm more of an audio guy.
There you go.
So Karen did take the first thing we put out, and they're going to get a free ebook on foliar feeding. That's what it's going to be. Okay. We'll go into about 40 pages of exactly what to do, and then she went ahead and published that for people to be able to. In the very near future, you'll be able to purchase that. I think on Amazon, you can purchase a hard copy if you so desire. So
that'd be an interesting book to have on the shelf.
Yeah. Think you could get that in hardcover, or is it just you got to print it off?
It's just no, we'll sell it to you. It's not a hardcover. It's going to be a softback. So.
That's good. Well, I'm going to try and summarize, and then before we challenge, we'll wrap up with your story and roll that way. So we were here with Rod talking about A Better Way to Farm, which happens to be the company's name. And our more here in this conversation to challenge thought processes. We went through this. We talked about how your method is through education to avoid peer pressure just because a neighbor's doing it, just because we see others doing it on social media, to really try to dive into why it's happening and maybe lean into the disruptors. Look at not necessarily being frustrated that they're challenging the status quo, but maybe trying to figure out why that is being challenged. Make yourself think a little bit. We've got data, because that's one of the things that you really focus on using is data to really get a baseline to allow yourself to analyze whether or not something is working. Provided us a couple of different suggestions on the micros front that listeners can go back and re-listen to. You understand that margin drives decision making, and that ROI is one of the major things, and if not the majorest thing that matters. Think about the decisions that you make. Make sure you're taking your soil and tissue samples. And if you're going to use products, whether it's foliar feeding, this is where the quote came from, you must do that process right in order to be successful. It's especially important on foliar feeding. Dave's not extra full of air. We're feeding the foliage of the plants. The ultimate two comments that I wrote down is the better way is what's right for your farm. And if you come across the feeling of hate or have haters of your own, they're more than likely uninformed fans.
Yep.
So lean into that. Whether you find yourself having that feeling or you have others that feel that way about you, it might provide a little bit more of an answer there.
Sure. So in regards to social media, which is where it really started, the bottom line is those guys drive engagement. And quite honestly, when I'm looking for clients, I'm looking for a specific group, okay? And the people that want to cuss and scream and be mean, they're not my people. They're free to do whatever they want. We believe completely in property rights and freedom of speech. And I guess basically I sum it up this way. You're entitled to whatever opinion you have, no matter how wrong it may be. And so it's a great thing about America, it really is. But when those guys do that, the guys that are really hateful, what they tend to do is they drive people to us who are our people.
Yeah.
We don't, if you'll look at our social media, we don't engage with that. We're not going to get down and roll in the gutter, and we're not going to cuss. We're not going to, I don't even respond.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, Tanner, what's really helped us is because what those haters do is they bring us other people. The other thing that they serve to do, like in a farming operation, hopefully they motivate you. Yeah. You walk into the coffee shop and they stop talking and you're like, wonder what they were discussing just before I got here. Well, hopefully that's a motivation to go and be more successful and work harder, do better.
Fuel for the fire.
Fuel for the
fire, right?
Yeah. All right, what's your story?
Well, I had an individual. I picked up a bunch of clients up in the north half of Iowa and Minnesota, especially Minnesota. Those guys up there grow 260 bushel corn. They all grow 50 bushel soybeans.
Yeah.
That's kind of like scratch your head, right? So Mike calls me and he says, we grow pretty good corn. We're happy with that. But he said, our soybean yields are just, 50 bushel. That's it. Yep. And he said, and I went to my local retailer, and 3 years ago I said, hey, my bean yields aren't good enough. Help me here. Nothing. Said 2 years ago I went to him, said, my beans aren't good enough. Help me. Went to them this fall, and they said, my beans aren't good enough. Come on, man, you got to help me. And they said, what are you making? He said, we're cutting about 50 bushel beans. And the retailer said, that's good enough. And Mike said, that's good enough to pay my bill, but it doesn't buy my wife a new car, and we need a new car. Yep. Okay? So he came to us, and he started in with us. And I said, now, Mike, I want to tell you how this is going to work, because you're going to start with us. And this first year, it's going to work, and they're going to tell you that you're an idiot and this is going to ruin your farm and this won't work. And I said, then in August or September, they're going to come out, they're going to look at it, and they're going to say, which these guys threw me a curveball, I'll share that in a minute, but they're going to say, well, this it worked. We can get something just like this. And they came out, and the first thing that they said was, we did the best job of matching seed to the soil that we've ever done. Look at these yields. They planted the same hybrid on every acre, okay?
Right, all the soil is the same, right?
Yeah, luckily it was all very uniform. So they came out and they said, we could do this, we could do, and Mike's deal was, well, then why didn't you? Why did I have to go somewhere else, in order to get that. And I'll tell you that here we are 4 years later. They average 78 bushel to the acre on their soybeans this year, and they are yet to their next frontier is they're going to start foliar feeding so they can move to another level. And I just think about that. And as a side benefit, their corn yields have went up about 40 bushel to the acre. Jeez. Even though they were happy with them before, they're happier now.
Very nice.
Those are results.
That's good.
Nice.
I had like 5 other things. I'm only going to talk about one just for you. Because just for you, I've had this theory of trendline yield.
Yep.
If you overlay the carbon in the atmosphere, the CO2, with trendline yield, it's dang near the same trajectory.
Yeah.
Are you in agreement with that?
How we manage, the bottom line is I sell NPK and micros, but we still know that carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are actually the three biggest things.
Yep.
And so managing that carbon, which gets into all the tillage and all that, not getting a big carbon burst too early and losing it, managing that is a big deal. And I got to be very cautious. I'll get political here on this.
Oh, boy.
But, I'm old, all right? Yeah. I lived through the 60s and the 70s, and back then we were all going to die from an ice age. We were all going to freeze to death. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, it was coming, Mm-hmm. And now here we are at the other end of the spectrum. I don't get too concerned about that, but I will say that carbon's important in growing a crop.
Yep.
And I think that there's probably some merit in that is not an accident necessarily that those are happening that way.
The 2 recent years I can think of that we've had very good yields over the farm has been 21 and this year. And guess what? Both of those years we had a lot of smoke.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's a lot of CO2.
Yes, it is.
So in my mind, I think it helped, but that's just my theory.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So smoke in a jug, that's what you need.
There you
Smoke. Another.
Well, you could do like they do with U.S. sugar and burn off all the foliage.
Yeah, it grows for 363 days a year.
64 days and
23 and a half hours.
Yes.
and then they burn it
in 30 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've got smoke in a jug. Listen to all these marketers listening to this. We've got smoke in a jug. We got Viagra for corn. We got Ozempic. We're gonna put it into our soil.
It's going to be interesting next 3 years to see these come out, and we won't even get a cut out of it.
Yeah, no, this is officially on record. We will send this to our trademark attorney,
and we own it.
And we will be good to go. We're going to say a challenge, and I think this show we're going to get a challenge from all 3 of us, and you kind of gave yours. The last comment that you made before your story is very telling. Our role on this podcast is provide access to information.
Yep.
And very rarely do we stand on a platform and say, this is what you should do. Now, we almost did that with tile. We are pretty damn close to that. But we also realize tile doesn't fix every part of the geographic that listens to our podcast. Mm-hmm. So our job is to try and ask questions to get to the bottom of a story, or at least provide enough of an insight for someone to go do more research.
Sure.
So it's good that they can go to abetterwaytofarm.com and get more information and reach out to you. And if they go /profit, then they can get maybe a little bit more access than just what the surface level is. Dave, what's your challenge?
I wrote down on my page that we should all look to the person on our right and say, what can I do to try something new? And let someone else give you some advice and then try it.
Did you set me up?
Why does it have to be to the person to the right?
I don't know. Just because
he was setting me up. I got nobody.
It was like, hey, Corey, what can I do to try something new in selling farmland? And then you could ask the same thing. Hey, what could Corey do to try something new in farming? Yeah. And maybe you give him a challenge. Yeah. And then we're using advisors to help us think outside the box, which is exactly what your whole platform is on social media.
You need
think outside the box.
A better way to auction. That's what you need.
Yeah. Here, I thought you were going to tell me to use a buyer's premium.
Easy step.
I don't know if that's going to stay in there.
Just giving that. Hey, that was a hot topic last week.
It was a hot topic last week.
My challenge is to. It's going to go to social media, and it's going to go to if you, like you said, everyone, you can have you're entitled to your opinion, but keep it cordial. Like a lot of times, if you don't have something great to say, you can scroll on by. How miserable is your life that you are sitting there writing a book to debate someone that you don't agree with, when it's not like you're out there, being very political. You're just saying there's a different way to do this.
Yep.
There's plenty of ways to skin the cat.
And debate is fine.
Yeah.
Cordial.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to shut the comments off on that hate post that was going to 1 million, not because of people hating. Like I'm fine with that. It's people started threatening other people in the comments.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm like, okay, that's enough.
They were even defending the kid, defending the story.
Yeah. But I don't want threats from the people that agree with you to the people that don't. Like, no
Absolutely.
threats. Like, that is ridiculous. So, like, my challenge is to just have an open mind. And if you don't agree with something, you're entitled to say something, but you're also entitled to scroll on by. So, that's my challenge.
And the one that I'm going to throw out is we talked about it a long time ago. We've hit it multiple times. We discussed this. Is look at what your low yielding spots have going on. Maybe try to invest more in 2024 for those low yielding spots.
It's like low T.
Yeah.
See, there's another product.
Christmas.
Well, we got in the ditch.
Low P, low T.
We're in the rhubarb.
We are a marketing firm's best friend.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. Rod, I don't know if we fully knew the direction this episode was going to go. You probably had something different in your mind. But today, this is what you got, and hopefully you have some fun.
I had a great time. I'm looking forward to spending some more time talking to you guys in the future. And let me just say this. I would really encourage everybody. Our podcast is loaded with not fluff, but specific information. And we have 900 videos that are educational on A Better Way to Farm on Facebook. If they want to see what we really believe, they can go look at those and get a very quick view of what we do.
Good. Well, it was our pleasure to have you on, get some insights as to what you're doing. Guys, you got more questions?
Well, thanks for the tape measure. You can't improve it if you can't measure it.
That's right.
I like it. Listeners, thanks for hanging out with us and exploring another story. So until next time, have a good one.